My best friend and I were playing in the sand at the beach with our daughters when she got harassed by some thugs. To help her, I left my daughter's side, and as a result, my daughter drowned. I was accused of negligence, my husband divorced me, and the incident was even reported online, leading to cyberbullying and my family having to move overnight. Before I knew it, my husband married my best friend, and soon after, they had a son. Only then did I realize it was all a setup. My brother, after learning the truth, stood up for me and was taken to the police station by the despicable couple. My parents couldn't accept it and severed ties with me. In a daze, I was hit by a car and died. Having been reborn, I will repay everything I suffered in my previous life. The waves crashed against the rocks, splashing up white spray. I held my daughter's soft little hand, but my heart felt like it was being tightly gripped by an invisible hand. In my past life, it was right here. My best friend's desperate and heart-wrenching cries for help once made me make the wrong choice in a moment of panic. I abandoned my daughter and rushed to her, trying to save her from danger, but I never imagined that that turn would be my last goodbye to my daughter. That sharp, familiar cry for help pierced the quiet air once again, and my heart clenched. Instinctively, I hugged my daughter tightly, and without the slightest hesitation, I turned and ran. I didn't dare look back. Every cell in my body was screaming with excitement, urging me to run. I sprinted towards the hotel with all my might. Only when I stepped into the hotel's magnificent lobby, only when I saw the hidden cameras all around, did I finally relax my tense nerves. We're safe. We're safe. My fingers trembled with excitement, almost unable to steadily press the emergency number. The moment the call connected, my voice trembled slightly, but my tone was firm, and I concisely recounted what had happened. Time seemed to crawl as we waited for the police to arrive. I held my daughter in tightly in my arms. Her warm, real body was my only comfort. My eyes darted around warily, worried that our accomplices lurking in the shadows might be up to no good. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared at the hotel entrance. It was Jessica. She walked in with a limp, her face showing a pitiful expression, as if she might collapse at any moment. Her swimsuit was torn and disheveled, and tear tracks were clearly visible on her face. Her frail appearance would have evoked pity in anyone else. If it were me in my past life, I would have rushed to help her. However, at this moment, I merely watched her performance with indifference. Her voice was choked with sobs and filled with accusation. "Tina, how could you do this to me?" Her words were full of grievance and incomprehension. Her body leaned weakly toward me, as if in a past life, seeking my support and comfort. This time, however, I didn't reach out as usual. Instead, I quickly dodged to the side, avoiding her. She hadn't expected me to move aside, and she lost her balance, falling heavily to the ground, clutching her stomach and groaning in pain. "What's wrong?" I asked, feigning concern. I have a stomachache." My best friend's voice trembled, her face pale. "Are you on your period?" But my gaze fell on the specks of blood seeping from her swimsuit beneath her. Jessica then realized something was wrong, her face turning deathly pale. She grabbed my hand in terror, her voice trembling as she said, "Tina, quick! Quick, call an ambulance for me." I feigned surprise and covered my mouth. You're having your period? Calling an ambulance isn't necessary, is it? That's such a waste of public resources." "No, it's my child, Jessica explained hastily. I feigned surprise and raised my voice. "Huh? You're not married yet, and I've never heard of you having a boyfriend?" I pointed to the bloodstains beneath her and said righteously, "Tell me, who's the father of this child? I'm going to find her and make him take responsibility." People around her cast strange glances at her best friend, and whispers filled the air. "Look, she's pregnant at such a young age, how shameless." "Exactly, I wonder who the father is, it's so pitiful." Jessica was filled with shame and anger, and her stomach pain intensified, blood staining her swimsuit. "Quick, call an ambulance," she pleaded weakly, her voice growing softer and softer. I stood to the side, watching everything coldly with my head down, a chilling smile playing on my lips. The blood flowed more and more, and the onlookers finally realized something was wrong. Someone dialed 120, the emergency number. My best friend finally breathed a sigh of relief and fainted. I watched her being taken away in the ambulance, her eyes cold and resolute. I obediently got into the police car with my daughter. Now we were completely safe. Because I was the one who called the police, I couldn't go to the hospital with them. I had to go to the police station first to give a statement, and was fast asleep in my arms on the cold chair in the police station. I gently stroked her soft hair, and gazed at her greedily. A sharp slap shattered the tranquility of the police station. I turned my head to the side, my ears ringing, and, fast asleep, was startled awake by the sudden sound and immediately reached out to hug my neck, crying out, "Mommy!" I quickly hugged and tightly and gently comforted her. "It's okay and don't be afraid." But my mother-in-law, Michelle, didn't let us off the hook. "You vicious woman. How could you just stand by and watch me die?" Michelle's shrill voice was like a sharp blade, piercing my eardrums. I lifted my slapped cheek, staring coldly at the ferocious woman before me. I stood by and watched her die. I called the police. How is that standing by and watching her die? I was holding in at the time. I said coldly, my tone completely flat. "What's the use of calling the police? She's still in the hospital being treated, all because of you." Michelle didn't give me any chance to explain, pointing her finger at my nose and spitting all over my face. I looked at her coldly and sneered. It seemed that this old hag had known about her son's filth for a long time, and was desperate for a grandson. Ha, she doesn't even know whose child is in her belly, so why is she blaming me? I retorted without any politeness. "You." Michelle was speechless, choked by my words. She couldn't reveal that the bastard child in Jessica's belly was from the Xie family. Frustrated, she grabbed me and said, You come with me to the hospital and apologize to Jessica." I dismissively shook off her hand. My eyes filled with disdain. "Apologize? Why should I?" "Enough." A deep voice rang out, and Hugo strode in, shielding me behind him. He glanced coldly at Michelle, his tone carrying an undeniable authority. "Have you made enough of a scene?" Michelle's momentum weakened slightly upon seeing Hugo, but she still stubbornly retorted, "Your sister is heartless and bullies people, and you're still protecting her?" "I'm protecting her? Have you forgotten? She's my own sister." Hugo narrowed his eyes and said word by word, "If it weren't for her, would Vance still be able to hold on to his position as vice president?" Michelle paused for a moment, seemingly only then remembering that Vance worked for her brother-in-law's family. Her eyes darted away, avoiding eye contact with Hugo, and she could only keep giving me meaningful glances, hoping I would speak up for him. I can't help but laugh at her current state. She knows my brother is threatening her, but she doesn't dare to utter a single word. "Your favoritism has reached an extreme level? My sister Tina is your daughter-in-law, and you didn't even ask her anything before hitting her and demanding that she apologize? Do you and Jessica have some kind of secret relationship?" Hugo's eyes grew increasingly dangerous as he asked more questions. Michelle wanted to say something, but seeing Hugo's cold gaze, she ultimately shut her mouth. She glared at me fiercely, probably cursing me a million times in her mind, but I didn't care at all. "Brother." I looked at my brother with gratitude. This is my brother. In my past life, I dragged him down and he suffered imprisonment. In this life, I will protect him. All right. Hugo patted my shoulder and said softly, "Let's go to the hospital." I nodded, picked up Anne, and followed Hugo out of the police station. The hospital corridor reeked of disinfectant. When we arrived at Jessica's room, we heard crying and fussing coming from inside. My child almost died. I was so scared. Jessica cried with tears streaming down her face, making people want to protect her. It was this face that bewitched me in my past life. "Jessica, don't be like this, it's my fault, I shouldn't have." Vance's voice was low and hoarse, filled with guilt and heartache. I pushed open the door to the ward and saw Vance sitting by the bedside, holding Jessica's hand, looking at her with a pained expression. Jessica was lying on the bed, her face pale. When she saw me come in, she quickly put away her shy expression. "What are you doing here? Are you here to laugh at me? I don't want you as my friend anymore." "Humph." Jessica was throwing a tantrum like a child, turning her face away with a charmingly naive expression, as if to say, "Even if you try to coax me, I won't forgive you." "I came to see if you were dead," I said coldly, my tone devoid of any warmth. You. Jessica froze upon hearing this. She never expected me to answer like that. Was this still the naive and innocent Tina she knew? But her silence didn't mean her sycophant was silent. Tina, how could you talk like that? Jessica is your best friend. Vance frowned at me, his tone tinged with reproach. What am I saying? I'm concerned about her. I sneered, but then, as if remembering something, I asked with a gossipy look. Who's the wild man who got you pregnant? Tell me quickly. You. Jessica was so angry that she gritted her teeth, but she couldn't utter a single word. Vance, sitting beside her bed, looked even more unwell. I chuckled inwardly but didn't show it on my face. Jessica, I'm not trying to be mean, but you have no self-respect. You're pregnant before marriage. Did you take that man for a checkup? What if he has some kind of sexually transmitted disease that you could get infected? Jessica was disgusted and screamed. Tina, what nonsense are you talking about? You. Before she could finish, Hugo interrupted her. Enough. Hugo looked coldly at Jessica. You should be taking care of your health now. Jessica's eyes flickered when she saw Hugo, but she still stubbornly said, Brother, you have to stand up for me. She almost caused my miscarriage. She was right there when I was being harassed by thugs. I asked for help, but instead of helping me, she turned around and ran away. She's my best friend. How could she do this to me? Do you know how desperate I was? Make the decision? What decision do I have? Hugo sneered. I'm neither a doctor who can't save a child of unknown father, nor a judge who can't resolve your demands. All I know is that my sister is a mother, and no matter what happens, she will choose to protect her child first, and that's right. Jessica's face paled, and she turned to me with the accusing look. Tina, I'm a mother too. My child almost died because of your indifference. Don't you have any compassion? Even at this point, she was still trying to sow discord between me and Hugo. I looked at her coldly, my eyes full of disdain. Jessica, you're not a kindergarten teacher, are you? Your job is to stage accidents, isn't it? I walked to the bedside, looking down at her. Who knew you were pregnant back then? You. Jessica trembled with anger, but couldn't utter a word. Tina, that's enough. Vance stood up, blocking Jessica's path, glaring at me. She's already been pitiful enough. She's pitiful? I couldn't help but laugh out loud, as if I'd heard a hilarious joke. Vance, have you thought about what would happen to our daughter if I went? Would she be in danger? I'm a woman facing off against several grown men. Wouldn't I be in danger? Looking at the man I had loved deeply in my past life, I sighed once again, realizing I deserved that ending. Let's go. I grabbed Hugo's hand and turned to leave. Tina, you stop right there. Vance roared behind me. I ignored him and left the ward without looking back. Just as I stepped out of the ward, I heard Jessica's heart-wrenching cries behind me. And come back quickly, teacher is in pain. My heart sank, and a chill ran from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. Before I could react, I saw Anne, who had been obediently following me, suddenly break free of my hand and run towards the ward. Anne, I exclaimed, trying to chase after her, but Hugo grabbed me. Brother! I looked at him anxiously, not understanding why he was stopping me. Hugo shook his head at me, signaling me to calm down, and pulled me to stand at the door of the ward, coldly observing everything that was happening inside. In the ward, and rushed to Jessica's bedside, her little face full of worry and anxiety, and asked in her childish voice, Mommy, what's wrong? Where does it hurt? Hearing and addressed Jessica, my heart felt like it was being stabbed with needles, and the pain was so intense that I could hardly breathe. Jessica pulled Anne into a tight hug, tears streaming down her face like a broken string of pearls. She choked out, And Mommy's fine, I just missed you a little. Mommy! And reached out her little hand and gently stroked Jessica's cheek, her tender voice filled with heartache and love. My heart shattered completely at that moment. Jessica looked up at me standing in the doorway, a smug smile playing on her lips. Then she leaned down and whispered in Anne's ear. And your mother almost caused the teacher's baby to miscarry. How about you be Jessica's baby from now on, and we'll protect our little brother together? Anne paused, looked up at me, her eyes filled with confusion and helplessness. I saw her small mouth move, as if she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. My heart felt like it was being gripped tightly by an invisible hand, almost suffocating me. Jessica. I couldn't hold back any longer. I broke down, pushed Hugo aside, rushed into the ward, slapped Jessica hard, and snatched my daughter back into my arms. Slap. The crisp sound of a slap echoed in the ward, interrupting Jessica's performance. What are you doing? Vance suddenly stood up, glaring at me, shoving me aside and shielding Jessica behind him. Holding my daughter, I took several steps back to steady myself, my eyes filled with anger and disgust. I gritted my teeth and said, Jessica, don't go too far. And is my daughter, you have no right to let her call you mom. I went too far? How did I go too far? Jessica covered her slapped cheek and said with a wronged expression, I just felt sorry for Anne. She's so young. Have you ever cared about her? What have you done for her? Do you know how lonely she is usually? I was speechless, caught off guard by Jessica's words. And for a moment I didn't know how to refute her. What do you mean? You have nothing to say, do you? Jessica became even more smug when she saw my discomfiture. Jessica, have you no shame? I roared furiously. You're a kindergarten teacher. How could you induce children to call you mom? Do you have any professional ethics? Do you have any conscience? I just liken too much. Jessica hid behind Vance, sobbing softly, her face full of grievance. Enough. Hugo stepped forward, pulled me behind him, and coldly watched Jessica and Vance. Jessica, this is my last warning. And as my niece, you better not try anything with her again, or I won't let you get away with it. Hugo said, each word dripping with a warning. Jessica trembled with fear, too scared to speak, and could only hide behind Vance, shaking with fear. Let's go. Hugo grabbed my hand and turned to leave. I gave Jessica a deep look, my eyes filled with coldness and determination, and then left the ward without looking back. Hugo's car sped away from the hospital like an arrow, but my heart felt hollow, empty, filled only with endless anger and sorrow. Without saying much to my brother, I went home and went straight to my study. I turned on my computer, opened the kindergarten parents group chat, and my fingers flew across the keyboard. Dear parents, hello everyone. I am a parent of a student in Jessica's class. I have something very important to tell you. I took a deep breath and uploaded the video on my phone of Jessica coaxing, and to call her mom to the group. The video was short, less than a minute after cutting out the beginning and end, but it was enough to prove Jessica's malicious intentions. The moment the video was successfully uploaded, my heart leaped into my throat. I knew a storm was brewing, but I couldn't worry about that anymore. I can't stand by and watch someone like Jessica continue to get away with it, and I can't let her continue to hurt my daughter. Everything that was imposed on me in my past life, I'm going to make her experience it all. Almost the instant the video was uploaded, the parents' group chat exploded. Oh my God, this is too much. How could teacher Jessica do this? Yeah, how could she get a child to call her mom? Does she have any professional ethics? This is horrible. I'll never send my child to this kindergarten again. I'm going to file a complaint against her and make sure she gets the punishment she deserves. The parents' anger erupted like a volcano, completely out of control. I stared at the endless stream of messages on my phone screen, a cold smile playing on my lips. I turned off my phone and tossed it aside. Jessica, aren't you a great actress? Starting today, you'll show everyone what it's like to be scorned by thousands. I turned off my phone and wearily rubbed my temples. Stepping out of the study, I saw Hugo sitting on the sofa in the living room, and nestled in his arms, playing with his phone, her little face still streaked with tears. And what's wrong? I went over and tenderly picked up my daughter. Mommy, please don't be angry anymore, okay? Uncle has already scolded Anne and knows she was wrong, and hugged my neck and coaxed me in her sweet, childish voice. Mommy isn't angry and go play. I kissed her forehead and put her aside. Brother, why haven't you left yet? I turned to Hugo, my voice tinged with weariness. Things have gotten this bad. I'm worried about leaving you alone. Hugo frowned, his voice tinged with reproach. I know you've been wronged, but your impulsive actions. I won't let her get away with this. My tone was firm, without the slightest hint of backing down. Hugo looked into my eyes. He knew that once I made up my mind, no one could change it. In the end he sighed, got up and left. The next morning, a series of urgent knocks woke me from my sleep. Bang, bang, bang. The knocking grew more and more rapid, as if trying to break the door down. Tina, open the door. I know you're in there, came Vance's angry roar from outside. I took a deep breath, walked to the door and flung it open. So you know how to come back? I looked coldly at Vance standing in the doorway, my tone full of sarcasm. Vance's face turned ashen. He grabbed my arm and demanded through gritted teeth. Why did you post the video in the parents' group? Why did you slander Jessica? I shook off his hand and sneered. Slander? Am I wrong? Didn't she tell and to call her mom? It was clearly a misunderstanding, Vance stammered, his eyes darting around, avoiding my gaze. What? What are you feeling guilty about? Actually, you were looking forward to it too, weren't you? I pressed on, my tone sharp. Tina, stop being unreasonable. Jessica is your best friend. What's wrong with me taking care of her a little more? Vance shouted angrily. Take care of her a little more? Vance, have you no shame? I laughed at his shameless remarks. The neighbors, disturbed by our argument, opened their doors and peeked out to see what was going on. Seeing the growing crowd, Vance felt embarrassed and reached out to pull me away. What are you doing? Get out. I shoved him away forcefully and yelled, pointing towards the door. Tina, don't go too far. I'm your husband. Vance was furious, embarrassed and humiliated by my public humiliation. Husband? You don't deserve that title. I sneered, bent down, grabbed the suitcase I had already packed, and threw it in front of Vance. Get out. Before he could react, I slammed the door shut, the loud slam echoing down the hallway. I heard whispers from the neighbors outside. Vance cursed angrily, and then the sound of hurried footsteps faded into the distance. I leaned against the door, took a deep breath, and tried to calm my heart, which was pounding with excitement. Mom, and was standing in the bedroom doorway at some point, her small body clutching a doll, looking at me timidly. My heart softened instantly. I went over, knelt down and hugged her tightly. And don't be afraid, Mommy's here. Anne's little hands clutched at my clothes helplessly, her eyes still brimming with tears. Mommy, did you and Daddy have a fight? I gently stroked her hair and said softly, Daddy has to go on a business trip, and Mommy will be very busy these next few days. How about Anne goes to stay at Grandma's house for a few days? Anne nodded as if she understood, and rubbed her little head against my shoulder. And, remember, Mommy loves Anne the most. If Anne calls someone else Mommy, Mommy will be very, very sad. I looked into Anne's eyes and said each word carefully, and nodded seriously and held up her little finger. Anne promises that from now on she will only call Mommy Mommy and will not call anyone else Mommy. I happily pinky swore with her and kissed her on the cheek. After quickly packing a few of Anne's clothes, I took her out. At the kindergarten gate, parents were chatting in small groups. When they saw me arrive with Anne, the lively scene immediately quieted down, and everyone was giving me strange looks. I ignored their stares and went straight to the principal's office, knocking on the door. Please come in. The headmistress was a kind and approachable middle-aged woman. When she saw Anne and me, she smiled warmly. Hello, headmistress, I'm Anne's mother. I've come today to discuss something with you. I'd like to change Anne's class, I said, getting straight to the point. The principal's smile faltered slightly before returning to normal. Change classes? I need a reason. I took a deep breath and briefly recounted what had happened yesterday. After listening to my explanation, the principal's expression turned serious. Jessica's behavior was indeed inappropriate, and I will deal with this matter seriously. As for changing classes, I know this is difficult for you, but Anne is still young, and I don't want her to be exposed to teachers with distorted values. I hope you can understand. If this is difficult for you, I will have no choice but to seek help from higher authorities, I said sincerely. The principal hesitated for a moment, then finally nodded in agreement to my request. Leaving the kindergarten, I took Anne straight to my parents' house. And you'll be staying with your grandparents for the next few days, I said softly, crouching down beside her. Although Anne was a little reluctant, she obediently nodded. What happened? Why are you suddenly sending Anne back? My mother asked worriedly. I briefly explained the situation. And after listening, my mother turned pale with anger. That Vance is really outrageous. Don't worry, and is with us, you don't need to worry. My father comforted me. I nodded, tidied up Anne's clothes, played with her for a while longer until she fell asleep, and then I got up to leave. Leaving my parents' house, my heart was heavy. This marriage was a mistake from the very beginning, and it was time for me to make a choice. Before I could even catch my breath after getting home, a series of urgent knocks on the door struck my heart like a drumbeat. Bang! 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 The sound was so loud, it felt like it was going to smash a hole in the door, or like it was hitting my nerves, making my temples throb. I sneered and flung open the door. Oh, isn't this Jessica? Why aren't you in class? You've come all this way to visit me. My tone was undisguisedly sarcastic as my gaze swept across the two faces, finally settling on Jessica's meticulously made-up face, which showed no trace of the person who had almost miscarried just yesterday. Jessica clearly didn't expect me to say that. She paused for a moment, her eyes instantly reddened, and tears rolled down her cheeks like broken pearls. I know you're still angry with me, but this is really just a misunderstanding. I can explain. I never thought of taking Anne away. She said, reaching out to take my hand, but I dodged her without hesitation. Jessica, please have some self-respect. I looked at her coldly, my tone devoid of any warmth. You came to my house to put on a show, and I didn't even buy a ticket. Jessica was speechless at my words, her tears flowing even more fiercely as she looked at Vance pitifully, as if she had suffered a great injustice. Vance took the bait, pulling Jessica into his arms and patting her back tenderly while glaring at me angrily. Tina, haven't you made enough of a scene? Jessica has already humbled herself and apologized to you. What more do you want? Looking at the scene before me, I felt utterly ironic. Apologize? What did she do to deserve an apology? I sneered, glancing at the neighbors who had gathered to watch the spectacle, and raised my voice. Jessica, you say you're my best friend, but is this how you treat my daughter? You're trying to get her to call you mom? My voice grew louder and louder, and my tone became more and more agitated. By the end, I was practically shouting. Jessica was startled by my sudden outburst, her face turning deathly pale. She huddled in Vance's arms, not daring to utter a single word. Vance was also taken aback by my outburst, pausing for a moment before trying to retort. Tina, don't make baseless accusations. Jessica just likes children. Likes children? Just because she likes children, she can just adopt any child she wants? Just because she likes children, she can just let any child call her mom? I sneered, interrupting him without any mercy. Vance, don't think I don't know what you're thinking. I pointed at his nose and said, word by word, we're getting a divorce. My voice echoed in the hallway, resolute and unwavering. The neighbors' gazes towards Vance and Jessica became subtly different upon hearing my words. They had initially thought I was just having a minor marital spat with Vance, but now it seemed things weren't so simple. Vance was embarrassed when I exposed his thoughts in public, and he yelled at me angrily. Tina, are you crazy? Yes, I am crazy, I sneered, meeting his gaze without fear. Vance, I'm telling you, it's over between us. Now, take your best friend and get out of my house. My tone left no room for argument, and I slammed the door shut. I thought I could finally escape this suffocating farce, but the door hadn't even closed yet. Before I could turn around, a gust of wind swept past me, and before I could react, a burning pain shot through my face. I was stunned, my ears ringing. When I came to my senses, I realized it was Michelle again, my dear mother-in-law, standing in front of me, her hand still in the position to hit me, her face full of anger and disgust. You good-for-nothing who can't give birth to a son. You jinx, you even want to divorce my son? You don't deserve it. Michelle's sharp voice was like a blade, piercing my eardrums. I covered my slapped face, finding it utterly ridiculous. We haven't even complained about you yet, and you dare to mention divorce? Don't you even know what you are? You can't even give birth to a son. You're just a piece of trash who wants to wipe out the Xie family line. Michelle continued to yell, spitting all over my face. Get out of my house right now. We don't welcome barren hens like you. Michelle shouted hoarsely, pointing at the door. You can't even produce a son, and you still have the nerve to live in our house? Get out of here with nothing." Michelle's words became increasingly outrageous, as if I were some heinous criminal. I looked at the woman with the zhengning ferocious face in front of me and laughed, a maniacal laugh. "Michelle, let me tell you, this house is my premarital property. You think you can make me leave with nothing? You're dreaming," I said, laughing but with icy eyes, each word distinct. "You want a penny? Dream on. And his vice president position too." I met her gaze without flinching, my eyes firm and resolute. Michelle was speechless, her face turning pale and then red, unable to utter a word for a long time. Seeing this, Vance quickly stepped in to smooth things over. "Mom, don't say any more. She was just acting on impulse." Impulse? Was that impulsive? She was trying to rebel. Michelle shook off Vance's hand, unable to vent her anger on me. She could only take it out on her son. Vance's face darkened, but he dared not argue. He could only coax Michelle in a low voice, not letting her mother continue her tantrum, or he would get nothing. "Mom, don't be angry. I'll try to persuade Tina." Watching this scene unfold before me, I felt nothing but utter irony. Seeing that Vance didn't dare to speak loudly in front of her, let alone defend her, Jessica steeled herself, closed her eyes, and with a fierce determination, shoved Vance aside and stumbled towards the edge of the rooftop. "Tina, if you don't clarify things, I'll jump off this building," she screamed, her voice hoarse, like a cornered beast. Seeing this, the neighbors panicked. Some called 999, the emergency number, while others tried to reason with me, saying, "Tina, just apologize first, don't let it really escalate to someone's death." Yeah, Jessica doesn't seem like a bad person. The child is more important. I watched Jessica's clumsy performance with a cold eye, feeling nothing at all, and even wanted to laugh. Jump then jump. I crossed my arms, watching her with a nonchalant air, my tone full of disdain. "It'd be better if you died, saving me the trouble of harming the nation's future." Jessica was completely enraged by my words. Her face flushed red. She pointed at me, trembling all over. "Tina, what's wrong with me? Am I wrong? If you want to be a mother, give birth yourself. Why go around being a mother to other people? Who gave you the nerve?" I interrupted her, closing in on her step by step, my tone icy and cutting. "Jessica, whose child is in your belly? Do you dare to say?" My words were like a sharp blade, piercing Jessica's heart. Her face turned deathly pale instantly, her lips moved, but she couldn't utter a single word. Michelle was frantic, like an ant on a hot pan, rushing forward to grab my hand, but I shoved her away. "Tina, Jessica is in this state, she's pregnant, can't you just say less? She's carrying a child. For the sake of the child, explain things to her." I looked at Michelle, a slight smile playing on my lips. "My dear mother-in-law, my best friend is going to jump off a building. Why are you so anxious?" I looked at her and said, word by word, my tone full of sarcasm, "Anyone who didn't know better would think she's your daughter-in-law, and that the bastard in her belly is from your Xie family." Michelle trembled at my words and dared not say anything more, only constantly giving Vance meaningful glances. Standing on the edge of the rooftop, Jessica was completely dumbfounded by what she saw. She never imagined that the gentle and kind Tina she knew would turn out like this. She stood there, caught between a rock and a hard place. Jump? She hadn't lived enough yet. That damned Vance and that useless old hag couldn't even save face for themselves. All they did was try to save Tina? Jessica was now in a terrible predicament, incredibly embarrassed. With a determined heart and gritted teeth, Jessica's body went limp, and she fell straight down. Of course, she fell into the building. "Jessica!" Without thinking, Vance rushed forward to catch Jessica. But in the blink of an eye, just as Vance was about to touch Jessica, someone stretched out a foot. With a muffled thud, Vance tripped and fell forward, landing heavily on top of Jessica. Jessica, feigning unconsciousness, let out a piercing scream that echoed across the rooftop. Tina sneered inwardly. Finally, God had opened his eyes. "Ah! Blood! Blood!" Michelle screamed in terror, pointing to the shocking pool of bright red beneath Jessica. The neighbors who had gathered were also stunned by this sudden turn of events, staring at each other in disbelief. My grandson. Michelle went completely mad, shoving Vance away and pulling Jessica into her arms, crying out in a hoarse voice. Vance stumbled from Michelle's push, almost falling to the ground. He stared at Michelle in disbelief, his lips trembling. It was all over. Oh my God, so she really is that old woman's illegitimate daughter-in-law. The young girl doesn't seem like a bad person. How could she do such a thing? Alas, poor thing, this child is probably doomed. The neighbors who had been watching suddenly realized what was happening, and their eyes were filled with contempt and disgust as they looked at Jessica. Tina watched all of this coldly, a mocking smile playing on her lips. Jessica, this is your own choice, so don't blame me. Vance, you bastard. Why aren't you calling 120? Look at the mess you've made. Michelle, holding Jessica, yelled at Vance. Vance was deathly pale. He never expected things to turn out this way. It shouldn't have been like this. My dear grandson. If you're gone, I won't live either. Michelle wailed and cried, as if the sky were about to fall. Tina watched this farce unfold, and found it utterly ridiculous. She slowly walked up to Michelle, looked down at her, and said word by word, Michelle, it seems your eldest grandson is coming out to see you ahead of schedule? Michelle was startled by Tina's cold gaze, and her crying stopped abruptly. What did you say? Michelle stammered, her eyes darting around, unable to meet Tina's gaze. I'm just reminding you, your family is destined to have no sons, and since there's no throne for anyone to inherit, why are you still dreaming of becoming the Empress Dowager? Tina's tone was mocking, yet it was tinged with cold hatred. You jinx. How dare you curse us? You bitch, I'll tear your mouth apart. Michelle lunged at Tina like a madwoman. Just as he was about to touch Tina, he was pushed away by a tremendous force, staggered back several steps, and was caught by Vance. Looking up angrily, she shouted, Hugo, what are you doing? My mother is an elder. How could you lay a hand on her? Where is your manners? Tina poked her head out from behind her brother and sneered. Michelle, you keep calling her your grandson, what? Did you already know that the child in Jessica's belly was Vance's? Michelle's face paled as she realized she had made a huge blunder. In her excitement, she had let something slip. She looked helplessly at her eldest son. The neighbors, having understood Tina's meaning, immediately looked at Michelle and Vance with disdain. So it turns out the mother-in-law was condoning the mistress. You can never judge a book by its cover. This family looks respectable, but who would have thought they'd do such despicable things behind the scenes? The world is going to the dogs, and people's hearts are no longer what they used to be. You'd better be careful when your daughters get married in the future. It's really bad luck to have a mother-in-law like that. Hearing the surrounding neighbors' gossip, Michelle and Vance's faces were frighteningly dark, and they wished they could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. The ambulance came and went with sirens blaring, taking Jessica and the mess with it. Tina stood there, watching the ambulance disappear from sight, a cold smile playing on her lips. Jessica, Vance, Michelle, this feud between us has only just begun. Brother, let's go home. Tina turned around and said to Hugo, who had been standing silently behind her. Hugo saw the cold glint in his sister's eyes and his heart skipped a beat. He knew that his sister was truly angry this time. Back home, Tina took a deep breath and told Hugo the whole story without holding anything back. Upon hearing it, Hugo slammed his fist on the coffee table in anger, gritting his teeth as he said, Those two scoundrels, they've gone too far. And Michelle, she's completely senile. Brother, I want a divorce, Tina said firmly, without the slightest hesitation. Divorce you absolutely must. This kind of man, this kind of family, isn't worth your time. Hugo supported his sister's decision without hesitation. Don't worry, I'll handle the divorce. I'll make sure he leaves with nothing. Hugo acted swiftly, contacting a lawyer, and completing the divorce proceedings as quickly as possible. Just as Hugo handed the divorce certificate to Tina, he received a call from his company saying someone had reported him for embezzling company funds, and that he needed to return immediately to cooperate with the investigation. Brother, don't worry, Tina said firmly. Hugo frowned, a vague sense of foreboding creeping into his heart. He rushed to the company, only to be taken away by the police as soon as he entered his office. Hugo, his assistant Xiaolu, exclaimed in surprise, hurriedly trying to chase after him. Vance was overjoyed to learn that Hugo had been taken away by the police. Hugo, let's see how you fight me this time. Vance paced back and forth in his office excitedly. He could almost see himself sitting on the company president's throne. And at that moment, he would make Tina kneel before him and beg for mercy. Vance couldn't wait to start arranging the inauguration ceremony. He wanted everyone to know that he was the true owner of this company. On the other side, Tina stood in front of the small villa that Vance had bought with money he had embezzled from the company, looking at Jessica, who was dressed up in a flamboyant manner. Today, Jessica wore a red dress, had exquisite makeup, and a happy smile on her face, completely unlike the desperate and vulnerable look she had on the rooftop earlier. "Madam, please take your time. Vance is already waiting for you at the venue." A greasy middle-aged man opened the car door for Jessica with great enthusiasm. Jessica, like a proud peacock, stepped into the car, her high heels swaying as she moved. As soon as the car started moving, several police cars roared up and stopped in front of the villa, blocking their way. "Jessica, you are suspected of instigating others to commit crimes. Please come with us." Jessica's smile froze instantly as she stared at the police officers in disbelief. "I'm innocent. Who ordered you to do this? You bandits, let me go." Jessica struggled desperately, screaming incoherently, but was still forcibly taken into the car by the police. Tina watched as Jessica was taken away by the police, a cold smile curving her lips. "Jessica, I told you, you'll pay for what you've done." Hugo was locked in the cold detention center, endlessly trying to piece together what had happened, but he still couldn't figure it out, until the police came in with a lawyer. "Sir, you're all right now, you can go." Hugo couldn't believe his ears. "What did you say?" The lawyer smiled and said, "Your sister has found new evidence proving that you were framed by Vance, and that he is the one who actually falsified the accounts and embezzled funds." Hugo walked out of the police station and saw Tina standing at the door. He smiled and nodded at her. "Tina." Tina gave Hugo a big smile. "Brother, it's all over now." At Vance's inauguration celebration, he wore an expensive suit and a smug smile, accepting compliments and congratulations from everyone. "Vance, congratulations. Vance is young and promising. He has a bright future ahead of him." Vance, basking in the praise of the crowd, felt elated, as if he had already reached the pinnacle of life. Just then, the banquet hall doors were suddenly pushed open, and several police officers walked in. "Vance, you are suspected of embezzlement and bribery. Please come with us." Vance's smile froze instantly as he stared at the police in disbelief. "No, you've got the wrong person. I'm the president of YY Company." But the police ignored him and forcibly took him away from the venue. A murmur rippled through the banquet hall, the crowd buzzing with disdain and mockery as they looked at Vance. Tina and Hugo stood in the crowd, both wearing relieved smiles. Justice may be delayed, but it will never be absent.